And we are live. Welcome to Real Talk with Andres and Heather, the podcast where we say the quiet part out loud about real estate, business, and the situations nobody warns you about. All while we're being live, so there are no edits afterwards.
Let's go. This isn't coaching from a stage or highlight reel from social media. This is real stories, real mistakes, and real money and real consequences from agents, buyers, sellers, and business owners. So if you want to hear from people in the field, other professionals who come to this show and hear how this really works, you're in the right place. So I'm Andres, and this is Heather. Let's get into some real talk.
Let's get into it. So
Let's
we
do
had some bad storms roll through here last night in Atlanta area. What about you, Andres?
We had some here quite as well. It's the funny thing is that I want to take pictures for that list that I just mentioned before coming live, and on my way back home, I tried to get it done early because I knew it was going to rain. But on my way back home, it said, "Oh, we had heavy rain coming through my area, through my property," and I'm like, "Okay." Started right as I was getting home. Fast forward 3 4 hours later. I see my backyard. It's not flooded, but on the back end, on the other side of my yard, I see a nice pool of water there, and some water creeping into my yard. The drainage is not the greatest, so it sits there for a minute, but it's gone within 24 hours. Um, but it just happened rather quickly. And yeah, something we're talking about. You mentioned you're going over to Florida this weekend. I'm also looking to I drive to North Carolina, go visit my son who was stationed right outside, who's in the Marines and was stationed there. So looking forward to driving up there, but that's always something that I like to pay attention to, weather-wise, how it's going to be on my way there. Given that on my way here, when I moved to Alabama from California, we drove back several times. And the very first time I drove back, mind you, I was in a Honda Fit with a 120-pound dog, my son, and all his stuff. We were cramped up, and that's one of the things I always pay attention to: the weather. Like you want to make sure that you are safe, especially you understand your vehicles, your conditions, and you try to avoid any storms in the process. And, and by doing so, I avoided potentially hazards routes, and that definitely helps a lot. Because coming over at that particular time, we no, we went through the mountains in Arizona, and mind you, we're coming from San Diego where it was 70 degrees weather or 60 degrees weather, and we went through the mountains in Arizona going into New Mexico, and there was about 2 feet of snow up there. I didn't have a jacket on me. I didn't have a sweater, nothing. It was just a t-shirt on, thinking it's gonna be a nice weather all the way through. Thankfully, there was no snow, no rain throughout the process, but just being conscious of the temperature, the climate change in different areas, depending on where you're traveling. Just little touches to be prepared makes a big difference.
It really does. I know the worst thing is to be traveling and get stranded or get stuck, and then you're not familiar with the area, you're not equipped to handle a situation, and I hate driving. It's like I never want to drive anywhere. So like I'm either Tony's gonna drive or my sister's gonna drive on the trip, but hopefully, at least in Destin, it looks like it's gonna be nice this weekend. What about you? Is the weather up there look good?
Right now, it looks nice. It's cloudy with the storm that just passed, but we're supposed to get more rain on tomorrow, all the way through Thursday. So that's something I got to look into it because we want to head out Thursday night. So definitely the weather plays a big part into when we leave. I don't want to leave and be right through the storm, a good portion of the way. And another scenario, actually, since something like that happened. We left Arkansas one time. We were at the Diamond Park there, and we left, and it felt like the storm was just chasing us the whole time, all the way to Memphis, Tennessee, for like 2 hours, and just kept running away from it. And in some parts, it got really bad. I know on Little Rock, the storm was really bad, and we stopped at a gas station, and the power went out. And it's one of those things you just gotta sometimes run away from it.
It probably was chasing you. It was like right behind you the whole time, and you were just like barely ahead of it.
It was. It felt like it. Certainly, it was like, man, I gotta make sure I have enough gas because if I stop, the thing is gonna catch up to me. And it felt like that for like 3 hours, and until we finally brought it south a little bit and avoided the rest. So it's interesting. I've been on a number of things. One time we were going to Miami a few years ago for a conference, and there was a tornado. I forgot the name of the hurricane that was coming through Tallahassee, and we routed. Took a little longer on the route because we routed around the hurricane, pretty much to the areas that already went by, and you could see the destruction, all the trees off the freeways broken down. There was floods in some areas, and we got the very tail end of it, like just some light rain right before we went through Orlando area and then made it down to Miami, and it was nice and sunny, like nothing ever happened. So it certainly plays a big role in planning the route and when you leave because it can make a big difference right there. So
It
very
really
important.
does. Sorry, I keep like I'm trying to sneeze, yawn. I don't know what I'm trying to do over here. I'm not feeling well today.
No worries. It's one of these days, hey, but we're here. We're still trying to make it happen, and let's jump right into it. Today is one of our favorite things. What would you do scenario? And I have a very interesting scenario. Thanks to my wife. Shout out to her. We were talking. I don't know how we got into this topic, and she's like, "Hey, what happened if the realtors passed away during a transaction?" I'm like, "Great, thank you."
Because I remember that they do teach you about what happens if either party passes away. But yeah, let's get into the story. Let's find out.
So, so yeah, that's gonna be today's scenario. And let me bring this up real quick. And I put it in two different. I broke it down into two short scenarios, like I did last time, right? And one of them is, let's go first. So imagine a couple has been hunting for homes, house hunting for homes, right? For months. They finally find the one, accepted offer, inspection zone, loan approved, closing is only 5 days away. You get the clear to close. Boom. And unfortunately, one of the buyers unexpectedly passed away. Now the surviving partner is overwhelmed and suddenly realizes something else. Now imagine there's two ways this can go, right? Imagine the bank, of course, is going to reassess the situation, and if they are not able to afford the property, of course, that contract will be most likely terminated, right? But imagine the scenario that the person can still afford the home, and on the other side, you know, the sellers already mentally moved out, they're packed, they're scheduled movers, they already put an offer on another property. That offer is accepted. What happens then? And now the buyer doesn't want to move into that property. You
Now,
know, there's a lot of emotional aspect that goes to it. Yes, they can still afford the home, but their partner is no longer there. They don't feel right going into this property. 5 days from closing, sellers already line everything up. What happens then? Do we lose the deal? What would you do, Heather?
I was trying to remember legally if they're still obligated, if they can go through with it or not. I don't know if they're still. That'd be well. First, I talk to my broker and find out legally. Do we, what's going on here? What are the obligations? Make sure you're covered. You know, legally. Um,
Yeah,
and then like let's look at it from like two different ways. Let's say that they obviously if the bank is like, yeah, no, you can't afford this on your own, then obviously you're not going to be moving forward. But even if they can, like, I don't think they're going to be closing on the closing date. Let's say the stars line up and everything, they're still going to have to redo that loan completely with just you know the one person on there. So you're at the very very least you're going to be asking for you know an extension of closing date, because I don't see it. I don't see it just being us like a oh well and keep moving forward type of situation. I think this is definitely a hard situation. And like, I mean, imagine if you've like what if this is like a newly married couple and this was going to be their home, the life that they were going to build together. Would you want to move into that home if your spouse just died?
yeah. I think there's numerous number of angles. For me, the first thing first is um, getting a lawyer, the real estate lawyer involved to see what are the options for that buyer, right? And then from a buyer, seller, and agent perspective, I think that the morale comes into place big time because, like you said, this is a property that you're looking forward to moving in with someone that this is the next chapter in life, and then all of a sudden that seems to be crumbling down, that completely fell apart for them. Then as a seller, I think that's something that we'll consider personally. Of course, every situation is different. You also have other things going on as a seller. It's a very difficult moment and situation to be put in, right? Because you also, like I said, you're thinking of what you have going on as well. That sale is impacting you in so many other areas, right? For you to focus on the well-being and or emotional being of somebody else at the moment, and how is that going to affect your family as well? So that there's two extreme different angles that you have to look into. Um, but I think that's something that I would definitely entertain. Um, because first and foremost, we it's a real estate transaction, but there's the element, the human aspect, the relationship aspect. That's always something that I always put first on my end, right? So I would
Well, I
definitely,
mean, I get putting the human aspect of it first, but there's the law aspect that actually has to go first, which is where you would need to get the real estate attorney and the brokers involved to find out what is actually going to happen. Like, is this transaction able to go forward? What's the wording of the contract? Can it go forward? And then determine, yes or no. And then after you've determined that, then I think comes into play the
yeah,
human the human aspect of it. But if it's where it can survive the death of one of the buyers, and you're supposed to move forward, then you're supposed to move forward.
yes, and again, it all depends on the law. If the law, there's a set of things already in place that it has to move forward, and that process, and then that person resell the property for because they no longer want it, then by all means, right? But I think if I'm the seller in a position to be able to say, okay, I'm in a position where I can hold on and maybe cancel this and take another offer without affecting my life or affecting everything that I have going on, and the buyer wants to cancel, then that's certainly something I will entertain because again, I'm looking at a situation where the laws allows the cancellation without affecting either party, and I'm in a position to be able to help that person and cancel that deal so that they can focus more on what's important for them at the moment. Then that's a no-brainer for me, right? But if it's a situation that where now everything else on my end is being affected, then that's something that we need to evaluate because it may not be happening as easy as we think it is.
And I think a lot of people aren't necessarily, going to be exactly how you are with the caring about the other situation. Some people just don't, and some people are going to be like, whether they have some another house on the line or not, they're going to be like, hey, this is what the contract says. We got
Yeah,
to follow
exactly.
through. Or, or the other way, they'll be like, oh, no, well, now, I just want to terminate this really quickly and move on to somebody else who can actually buy without the drama and not care that, like, you know, what's going on. I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to what the contract says and how you proceed. And for agents, even if you think even if you're like, oh, well, I know, you never should just be like, oh, I think I know. You should always consult the real estate attorney and your broker and make sure that you're covering your bases so that your buyer is safe in this situation. Because if they're already going through enough, if they just lost somebody, they're they're probably not in the, like, they tell you when you lose somebody, you're not supposed to make major decisions. You're not supposed to make life affecting decisions. So what do you do if you lose somebody in the middle of one of those
Yeah.
life decisions like that?
No, it's a tough spot. Because you, like you said, you don't want to make a decision, but you're already in it. The decision was already made. Now it's a secondary decision based on what you want to do moving forward and what the law allows you to do moving forward.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know every state, so each state could be different with what they do and what they don't allow, um, when it comes to the death of a
Yeah, and I think
party.
it's essential to consult the lawyers, uh, and and make sure that the best decision and the right decision is made accordingly based on what the information and how they want to handle that. Do not go by what Andres does and how Andres would do things. Never.
That's just a terrible situation to be in, and it's so hard too, because then once you're in that situation, for that person especially that lost that person, they've got so much that they're dealing with right at that very moment. They're dealing with funeral arrangements, they're dealing with family. If they've got children, they're dealing with the young children, trying to explain to them what happened. And then they've also got this real estate agent in their ear going, hey, 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 what are we going to do about the transaction? And it just becomes very, you know
It does, and then as a real estate agent, it's just you really have to understand how you want to approach it, right? And really how to be there for that client, understanding what they need. Because you don't want to be that one agent in the air. We're going to push forward. We're going to do this or we're going to do that. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you are, and that's me. Everybody handles it differently, but I don't know. I have a, how I am. I certainly always looking for everyone to be looking for everybody else best interest. My interest in that is that the client comes out with the result that they want and everyone is happy in that transaction. So
I don't
it's
know,
a,
I feel like I tell you and Tony the same thing all the time. Sometimes it's okay to say no. We need to have a what would you do, where it's Andres needs to and Tony needs to, and I'm sure Ellie, because you told me Ellie would agree with me, like a class and be like no, and we just like randomly ask you questions or ask you to do things, and you just have to say no to everything. Instead of a yes day, it's a no day.
that's gonna be tough. Don't give her that idea, please. She's probably listening and
I'm
getting
gonna message her. I'm gonna message her right now and be like, we're gonna schedule a no day for Andres.
that's gonna be tough.
It is, but sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes the right thing to do is to say no.
It is, trust me, and I have changed in the way I see it a few things and how I and what I say yes to, especially with some in some areas and some people and close to me. Because, like you said, sometimes you got to say no. It's the best thing, and it's the right thing. Not everything is a yes, but it's hard sometimes to see that because sometimes you see the best in people and they don't see it for themselves. You know.
Yeah.
So, real quick, another part of these scenarios that I wanted to put in is now imagine you're 2 weeks away from closing, everything going smoothly, and then you receive a shocking message that the agent passed away. So it's not just a buyer and a seller. Now we're looking at the position from an agent. So what happens then? You're
So you're eighth, and this is a new one for me. So I would assume, so if it was me, right, and let's say I didn't know anything about anything when it came to real estate, and I got notified that the agent passed away. Obviously first and foremost you'd be like sad because they're a person and they passed away. But from like the real estate side of it, obviously like the world continues to move and you've got things that have to get done. I guess what I would do if I was a just a buyer or a seller is contact a brokerage and be like, hey, and I would think that the brokerage already would be reaching out to the clients of if they have an agent that passed away and they know this agent has active deals going on. I would be thinking the brokerage would already be reaching out and talking to them and having somebody, you know, handle handle that, because it seems like it would be as simple as just like a little paperwork saying you're taking on a new agent. Bless you.
Thank you.
Um, and hopefully everything would go
Yeah,
smoothly.
yeah, and you're absolutely right. In most cases, if anything like that were to happen, the brokerage will take over the file and assign a new agent to handle that transaction, to fulfill that contract go through, and both parties are represented. So, but as an agent, I mean, as a buyer, you know, at least being informed, and this plays a huge role in the agent communication throughout the process, right? Because if you're a single agent, for example, I'm in a cloud brokerage, right? I work independent. I work independently for a year or so. I had nobody else near me that could take over any of my contracts if something were to happen, right? My brokers, the broker team is down in Birmingham. They would just find a random agent in the area that is part of the same brokerage and say, "Hey, here's another agent that will handle your transaction for the rest of the week."
And then you don't even know this person from Adam. You don't have any trust or relationship built up with this person. You're just like, here, this person's gonna, handle it from here. And you're like, I don't know this dude. Like, who is this guy? When you were first saying that and you were talking about being notified, I thought you were gonna say something along the lines of like how we all talk about communication and communicating with your client. I'm gonna be like, how are they supposed to communicate that they died? That's where I thought you were going with that. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Next time I die, I'll be sure to like let my clients know.
I sent her just set up an automation. If something were to happen to me, please send this message.
Hey, actually, that's not a bad idea to have in your BBAs and your listings. Like, if something were to happen to me, actually that's probably a really good idea because we're all gonna die sometime, and having something like that just to cover your bases so that your clients feel safe. Have something in your agreement that says, if something happens to me, reach out to my brokerage at this number or reach out to this, agent
and
and they'll take care of you.
and that's where I was going, because if you have a local office, most likely that's going to happen right away. And you have walked in the office and somebody knows you and knows what's going on, depending on how that office handling. But in a situation where it's a completely cloud-based brokerage,
Yeah.
and no one else is around, even the agents that are around, I may not necessarily know them personally, then at least providing that client a base of information like, hey, if something were to happen, reach out to these numbers and they can assign, you know, um, because then again, the brokers will reach out to them and they're going to be like, who the hell are you? If there's no information whatsoever indicating that that's the brokerage representing, and we'll assign somebody else to handle that file for the rest of the way. So it's little details that people don't think about, and when they happen, everybody's wondering what's next. what to do. So we were talking about that. I'm like, let me bring this up because this is something that it happens. Unfortunately, it happens. Um, so it's good to bring it up here and there.
Yeah. No, this was a good topic because it does happen, and unfortunately, a sad situation. And I don't think it happens horribly often, but it does happen. And it's always good to kind of throw these ideas out there and make sure people know what to do. And when and my what would you do advice would be, if all else fails, contact the closing attorney, your real estate attorney, contact the brokerage. Never just assume you know or assume that you're doing the right things, because you know what they say about assuming.
Yeah. Hey, another thought on that, right? What if the person, let's say the agent gets into an accident and not able to be there for that person for 2 3 weeks, a month, and another agents get assigned to the file? What happens then? Do the agent get a commission, a referral? You see, these are all things that now I'm playing around.
I would think a referral fee. I would think if like, because I know we've had situations where we've had agents, if it's just something as simple as like, oh, I'm going to go to closing for you because you can't make it to closing, you just like pay them something for going to closing. But if it's like, hey, this is over by your area and this is too far away for me to travel, so how about you handle this? Then yeah, it would be, you kick them uh, the file and then you get a referral fee, or somebody's to me, I think if you've done everything and like let's say something happens and you're laid up in the hospital for the rest of it, then yeah, I think they should maybe get like a 25% referral fee for you know carrying the what is that expression? I'm so bad with expressions. Carrying the ball across the field or whatever, or kicking it in the goal. I don't know. Finishing up the thing, whatever it is. Finishing up the thing.
We got you, Heather. We got you. Hey, no worries. It's just fun. I think these are the topics and the things that we want to bring over to the surface because, again, they happen from time to time. We're not aware. Unfortunately, no one around us, and it's very unfortunate when they happen overall. But just little things to be aware of because whether we like it or not, these things happen, and just a little thought on how to handle these situations and potentially help us at
Hmm.
some point. So this has been great. It went by fast. As usual, when we're having fun, this thing goes by fast. And I'm gonna be looking at getting a couple of guests over the next month or so we can uh, dive into some specific things. I have a home inspector that wants to join us on the podcast as well, so I'm gonna coordinate with him to get him on board. Uh, I know we wanted to talk to Sean about cloud realty and what we're doing with open cloud on that end as well. So lining up a couple of guests here so we can make things happen. So stay tuned for that. So, and again, it has been fun. So let's wrap it up, Heather.
Yep. And also, forgot to say earlier, we just want to mention as a quick note that these are dramatization stories. These are not real client situations, but every scenario is based on situations that agents and clients experience all the time. So it's not just you guys' job in the audience to listen, but it's also you guys' job to participate and let us know, what would you do if your agent died? Let us know in the comments.
And again, this episode made you uncomfortable, fired up, or feel seen. Good. That's the point. Show doesn't exist to entertain. It exists to start a conversation, challenge, bad advice, and help you make smarter decisions. So let's go.
And boom. And don't forget, if you guys want to be part of the conversation, not just listening in, go to our website, www.realtalkha.live, to join our Real Talk community, be a spotlight guest, or to go ahead and jump on one of the episodes of What Would You Do or Am I the Asshole and weigh in.
Absolutely. Do us a favor, share it, like it, and send it to someone who needs to hear it.
Yep. And don't forget to drop your comments down below. Let us know what you think. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And we will see you guys on the next episode.
See you next time with more real talk with Heather